In this segment, we're going to talk about the private sector expertise component of the real property appraiser regulatory system. This expertise is provided by the Appraisal Foundation. By way of background, the Appraisal Foundation was founded in 1987 by 8 major appraisal organizations. Its mission is to promote professionalism and ensure the public trust in professional valuation. As a state regulator, your interaction with the Foundation will be primarily with its 3 independent boards. With me today is John Brennan, our Director of Appraisal Issues, who is our senior staff person with the boards. Thank you, John, for coming. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Can you tell us a little bit about the primary function of each one of the boards?
The Appraisal Standards Board is responsible for developing and promulgating USPAP, which are the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. They are a broad set of ethical and competency requirements for appraisers. The Appraiser Qualifications Board sets the minimum education, experience, and examination requirements for appraisers. And the Appraisal Practices Board sets voluntary guidance on recognized valuation methods and techniques.
Can you tell us a little bit about the size and composition of each one of the boards?
Each of the boards is comprised of 5 to 7 individuals. They're appointed for 1 to 3 year terms and may serve a total of 8 years on a board. These boards are comprised of people in the appraisal profession, primarily practicing appraisers, but it may also include academicians and appraisers from different disciplines. It could be real property, personal property, business valuation, or mass appraisal.
What is the authority of each one of these boards, and how did they receive such authority?
The Appraisal Standards Board has been authorized by Congress through federal law to establish minimum appraisal standards in federally related financial transactions. Those standards are otherwise known as USPAP. The Appraiser Qualifications Board is authorized by Congress to establish minimum criteria in granting an appraiser license or certification. The Appraisal Practices Board is different. It is not authorized by Congress. The guidance that they offer is completely voluntary. They were created by the Appraisal Foundation primarily as a resource for appraisers who may not have access to sources of recognized methods and techniques.
And John, how do the 3 independent boards enforce the requirements that they establish?
Well, the boards actually aren't responsible for enforcement of the requirements they establish. That is done entirely by the state appraiser regulatory agencies and boards. The states are required to enforce the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice that the Appraisal Standards Board develops, making sure that appraisals are done properly. The Appraiser Qualifications Board establishes qualifications through the Real Property Appraiser Qualification Criteria, and the states are required to, at a minimum, comply with that criteria.
We talk about the authority that these boards have, and earlier today we had mentioned the 50 states and 5 territories. If they want to have a criteria that is different, or a standard that is different than that issued by the ASB or AQB, can they do so?
As a state, you can always create requirements above and beyond what the Standards Board or the Qualifications Board establish, but those are the minimums that you must comply with.
John, can you tell us a little bit how these boards function, the process of issuing qualifications and standards?
Well, it's a very transparent and public process. The boards will develop as information comes from users of appraisal service, appraisers, etc., proposed changes to standards or qualifications. Both boards work the same way in the Standards Board and the Qualifications Board. They will then expose those proposed changes for public comment, and they will review the comment that comes in and then possibly revise the material, the proposed revisions, and that may happen numerous times back and forth until a board finally feels that that all of the material has been considered and all of the issues have been heard before they will make a final adoption. But it's all very public.
And John, do all 3 of these boards function in the same manner?
Yeah, actually they do, Dave. All 3 boards provide material for public comment. The one difference being the Appraisal Practices Board does not develop the material on its own. The Appraisal Practices Board actually utilizes teams of subject matter experts, which are comprised of recognized leaders in the profession for a specific topic that they're issuing guidance on. Ultimately, though, that proposed guidance is submitted and developed and offered for public comment, just as the qualifications and the standards are with the other 2 boards.
Being familiar with the standards and also the qualifications, they're pretty dry documents. What, if anything, are the boards doing as far as providing some tools or some guidance to help understand these?
Well, that's a real good question, and the boards understand that reading the standards or the qualification criteria can be a little dry, as you say. Recognizing that each of the boards offers guidance that is, in some cases, binding, in some cases not. The Appraisal Standards Board, for example, issues advisory opinions and frequently asked questions, and they're all part of the same USPAP document. And those are designed to illustrate what a specific situation in USPAP is and provide guidance for how that may be applied. The Appraiser Qualifications Board offers interpretations to the criteria, which are binding. The states must comply with them, so they're almost like part of the criteria themselves. But they also offer guide notes and frequently asked questions, which are designed to do the same, to be able to illustrate and help the states particularly understand what the criteria requirements are and how to apply them.
Earlier you had used the term transparent in discussing the operations of the board. Do the boards meet in public, and if so, can you describe what a meeting would be like?
Yes, every board has public meetings. They only adopt any proposed changes in public, and they hold public meetings where they not only inform what the boards have been doing, but they request and solicit oral comments from the meeting attendees on any of the proposed material that may be out for exposure.
John, are individual members of the board available to either come and brief a state board or to speak at a professional appraisal organization meeting?
Yes, absolutely. Subject to resource constraints, we make a strong effort and we encourage states and others to request our board members and our staff, as appropriate, to be able to come to their meetings and be able to explain anything that may be in terms of proposed changes or clarification of standards or qualification criteria. We have a particular section on our website that says request for speaker, and it's a simple form that people can fill out and request a board member or a staff person to come to their meeting and be able to offer a presentation on whatever topic they're looking for.
I think it's a real challenge for our boards to strike a balance between reflecting the changing needs of the marketplace, but also providing some consistency for the enforcement community. How often do these boards revise their respective requirements?
Well, the Appraisal Standards Board, with the Uniform Standards, USPAP, currently it's a 2-year publication cycle. So they currently revise every 2 years. Now, some people may see that as being fairly frequent, but the document is relatively young from a historical purpose. A few years ago, the Appraisal Standards Board was issuing USPAP on an annual basis. So it has actually doubled the length of time that it now looks at creating a new edition. There's hope that somewhere down the line, as it further matures, they'll be able to revise it even less frequently. The Appraiser Qualifications Board, because the criteria changes don't seem to be needed in the marketplace that frequently, looks at the entire criteria requirements every 5 to 7 years. They do a thorough, comprehensive review, and that may include any comments that they've received over the period of time, as well as any changes in the marketplace for certain users of appraisal services and other clients in terms of exactly what they may be looking for in an appraiser. And then they will propose changes, and they usually give anywhere from a 3 to 4 year lead time for the states to be able to incorporate these new changes into their law.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. Greatly appreciate it.
My
Thanks
pleasure.
a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.